Well, I appreciate y'all being here. I got to come in, brother. Y'all here? I got called last night. Apparently Dave is sick. So, no, no. No, I sit down up there. So let's see. The class I was going to do, I don't know will mean much to y'all. Trying to think about a backup. Yeah, but the examples are different. Kind of adult examples versus kid examples.
Yeah, but if you did it whenever Bill was here, we'd still be here. So we'd still hear it.
Right, that's true. Okay, do the teenage class last lesson or fifth lesson. And y'all may have seen this. I think I did this with the teen class, but it'll give you a little bit of perspective. The problem is it's not super applicable for you guys as you're not teens. Gracie, means you need to come front and center because this whole lesson is for you. But it is interesting because, yeah, but the influence you have on them is diminished compared to being the teenager or being the parent of a teenager. Can you find it back there? And if we get 5 minutes in and you're like, switch it. I mean, I've got about 50 different lessons that we can choose from. Most of them have been taught to you guys in the past 4 years, which is why. Barry, you okay? Okay. Looking like you're getting a little TLC.
I get that a lot.
Oh, this is good for you. Let's see if I can help. Is it not pulling up?
I got it.
Okay. This is hard for you guys to see. I think when I did this with the kids, they were in a room. Okay. So this is a 15-year-old. The blue line is a 15-year-old who saves $100 today. The red line is a 15-year-old who decides to save $100 every month. That doesn't surprise anybody, right? If you save $100 every month, you get more than if you do it just one time. Okay. Oops. Okay. So, so this is, he puts it in the stock market or, 8% return. Okay. So this is what happens to a 15-year-old who decides he's going to put in $100 every month for 15 years. So you can see if he puts in $100 every month for 15 years, when he is 30, he'll have $35,000. That's not bad. All right. So here's another person. This person learned the value of investing their money at age 30, not at 15. But she realizes, I should have been doing this a long time ago. So instead of putting in $100 every month, she puts in $20 every month. I mean, $200, doubles it. She doubles it. And instead of only doing it for 15 years, she does it for 30 or for 20, all right? So she invests a lot more for a lot longer. This has a point, I promise, Yvonne. This has a point. So you can see the first person stops investing The second person keeps on investing. So we have another person right here who at age 35 doesn't invest anything early, but at age 35 says, I better get to it. So they start doing $300 a month, but instead of doing it for 15 years or 20 years, they say, I'm going to do it for 35 years. I'm going to do it till I'm 70. And I'm going to put in $300 a month every month until I'm 70 years old. So this compares. Have I shown you this before? Okay. So the first person, age 15 to 30, $100 a month, 15 years, has put in $18,000. That's all they've put in. Never put in a dime more. The next person, from 30 to 50, put in $48,000, right? Because they did more every month and they did it longer. And the last person put in $126,000. Really sank it in there, but started when they were 35 to age 70. $300 a month, that's a lot. So you can see the initial investment, very little, moderate, and a lot more. However, this is what they end up. Even though the kid only put in $18,000, because he did it early, look what they have at age 70. The kid who only invested $18,000 has $847,000. The woman who invested a little bit later, but she only put in $48,000, has $693,000. And the person who put in $300 a month, put in $148,000, has $586,000. Why? Compounding, not necessarily interest, but compounding. Compounding. What does compounding need? What does compounding need? Yeah, compounding means it grows interest. So before long, your interest grows interest, and the interest on your interest grows interest.
It needs an initial investment.
Sure, initial investment and time. It needs early initial investment. That's the trick. And there's great, here we have someone who does $100 a month for 35 years. And here, look, they have 120. So not only did they invest early, they invested a little bit every month forever until they retired. They didn't stop when they were 30. They kept on going. And then we have someone who, over time, look at this kid. This kid decides, hey, I'm going to do, while I'm young, I'm going to do $100 a month now. But guess what? When I'm 30, when I get a better job, I'm going to up it up. I'm going to do $200 a month. And then when I'm 35 and have an even better job, I'm going to do $300 a month. So not only do they invest early, they ramp it up as they get older and have more ability. And what do they have? 1.8 million. I mean, $300 a month, most of us could find a way to squirrel that away when we're 35 or 40, right? We've got a pretty good job. $300 a month isn't much, but it's probably less than we're paying for our car payment. Most of us have 2 cars. You don't have to have 2 cars. Guess what? You don't have to have 2 cars, right? And what if you doubled it? You did 200 and then 3.6 million. That's not bad money, right? How many of you would say, I'll take 3.6 million, right? So what is this showing us? We're talking about money. We've spent 5 minutes talking about money. But what's this showing us? Go ahead, Yvonne. The more you put into it, the more you get out. And what's the other lesson? Because remember, that first kid didn't put more in early. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. So there is a lesson here, a math lesson that is applicable to us because we're all trying to, most of us, I think, have worked to put food on our tables, but also most of us, probably since the 1920s, 1930s, have not expected to work until we die. Work outside for money, right? Most of us have, as the life expectancy has gone above age 50, which it wasn't earlier in this last century, have said, hey, there comes a point, I'm not going to work until the day I die. I'm going to take some time and enjoy the fruits of my labor. And so we retire, right? So there is a life lesson here mathematically, but the spiritual lesson is there's two things that we're called to do. Is to train up our children, but also our children should be training themselves too. And to keep on doubling down on our investment. I think that probably is where we struggle at our age, except for Gracie and maybe Mallory, right? Is we get to a point that we feel like I know enough. I've learned enough. I'm shopping for a new car. I have been for 3 years. People who know me well know I don't like spending money. But if I got a car that runs, why am I getting another car, right? Just because I'm a fairly successful gentleman doesn't mean I can't drive a 10-year-old beat-up minivan. It runs, right? So I've been looking for a car. Why do you think I keep looking at Hondas? True, they've got a good reputation. Why else? Resale value, sure. But if you don't know me well enough, Christy, why do I keep looking at Hondas? Come on, man. Yes, that's true too. You do know me that well. What's the car I'm driving now? A Honda. What was the car we had before that? Honda. So why does my daughter drive? Honda. So why am I looking at Hondas? Because I'm familiar, right? And so that's one of the concerns I have about us when it comes to, Wednesday night we've been talking a little bit about culture, right? So one of the things that we talked about was young men wearing a ball cap into the assembly. That bothers me a little bit, but I know that is not that's not a spiritual issue. That's a cultural issue. But it still bothers me. I tell you something that I have no spiritual basis that bothers me. Tattoos. There's nothing spiritual about that at all. That's a cultural thing, the way I was raised. Some of you may have grown up with women wearing pants instead of a dress or skirt to church, that was a sign of disrespect. Maybe that bothers you, right? So why, as we get older, and we all do this, we get codified into what I like, what I'm used to, what I'm comfortable with. And then we struggle, because I'm getting there too, we struggle to look outside what we're comfortable with, to learn something new, to be adjusting to something that maybe spiritually isn't an issue, but because our view on it, we have such a staunch view on it because of our culture, the way we were raised, that we sometimes may diminish our ability to speak to someone because of our prejudice. That's a decent word. I don't mean that to be a racial term, but we become a little prejudiced about it because we have our opinions and our likes and our stuff. Do y'all struggle with that? Of course. Hopefully we all do. Hopefully we all don't, but I know that we all do. And hopefully it's something we all recognize in ourselves. How many of you read books? Maybe I should start there. How many of you read books? How many of you read or listen to political people, religious people, who don't share your views? I would say for most of us, it's low. We listen to the people we agree with. Do people who disagree with me, let's say I have someone who is of a faith that I look at it and I go, I don't think that's scriptural as a whole. Is everything that they say unscriptural?
But probably not.
Probably not, right? Are there things that they may be able to say that I go, I hadn't thought about that way? That's very biblical, and it's a way I haven't thought about it. I can glean from that. Sure. Now, what does that require? Study. Because when you listen to someone inside these four walls, hopefully, or someone, and it's not always true, but someone who has a moniker under their name of a religious group or a congregation that you feel like is probably sound, what's probably going to happen is they're going to teach truth. And what can you kind of do then? Let your guard down. Or you feel like you can. Amber, did you have something?
I was going to say the moniker could also be doctor or
Sure.
pastor or whatever. You don't listen to someone who has doctor under their name or before their name.
You know what a doctorate means?
They studied a whole lot.
You know more and more about less and less until you know everything about nothing, right? So that's a joke with PhD, yeah.
But seriously, what you're talking about, you may be getting there, and I may be jumping the gun, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was told one time that, if you're preaching and you see people that are sleeping,
Uh-huh.
okay? And when you're preaching, you can see everybody,
Yeah.
whether they are or not. But I was told, don't take that as, they're not interested. You take that as they basically trust you, because if they didn't trust you to speak the truth, what you're saying, you would be intent on every word to make sure it was absolutely right. So it's kind of a mixed deal. It's kind of a blessing that they feel confident enough with you that they can let their guard down.
Ricky, you keep thinking that, brother. Someone's trying to make you feel good. No, I'm joking. I don't understand.
Now, I'm not talking about the person that comes in and sleeps every week, okay? I'm talking about, but
Yeah.
What you're talking about with letting your guard down. Because if you were really concerned about what that person said, you wouldn't be sleeping. You would be, and is he gonna say the truth or whatever? So, it puts us in a whole different perspective in how we listen and how we do things.
Sure.
A lot of times.
But as we get older, should we want to be challenged? Is it uncomfortable? Why do I go to the gym less now than I did when I was younger? Why do I exercise less? Why do I do things that are easier now than I did 15, 20 years ago? I'm comfortable. I got it going on, right? I'm good. Why would I disturb this? And so that complacency hits a lot of us as we age, right? Why does God tell us, suffer the little children to come into me, unless you be transformed, unless you be like a child? What is it? The childlikeness, the innocence, the intrigue, the interest, maybe, the trust, all those things. So I think sometimes we're afraid if we listen to someone, to something, that if they have a kernel of something that we go, that are we not mature enough to rightly divide the word, and sometimes go, this is incorrect. But wow, I've really not thought about this way. Now, I'm not saying go out there and start listening to a bunch of stuff. I'm just saying, when people differ from you, it gives you insight. It challenges your own faith to look things up. But also it gives you insight into the other person. You know what they're thinking, what they're teaching, what their background is, and what does that develop in you, an understanding with that person. And when you have that, there's more ability to approach that person, right? So we do that with our kids. Vance gave me a hard time this morning. We're sitting down eating breakfast and I'm asking questions. Well, what am I trying to do? Right, develop some understanding. What's going on in your life? What's so-and-so doing? What'd your friends do? I'm trying to develop understanding, relationship. But how's it come across? How did it come across? I just woke up, I'm eating, and you're asking me a bunch of questions. But that's the problem, right? So sometimes when we are with people, all we do is bomb them with questions, right? We interrogate them, which is what parenting's all about. It's interrogation to some degree. What you really want to do is develop relationships. So you don't have to pull things out of people, right? And that happens better after 9 a.m. in our house with every party involved, by the way. But that's the goal, is a relationship. So you don't have to argue. You're just understanding the other person, where they're coming from, and that gives you some insight on how to minister them, how to teach them. And guess what? You might learn something. One of the things that we were talking about in the teen class is, let me tell you something that there's not many of them, but the younger people, even Sarah's 23. Sarah would still be considered a na'ar, a child. Now, she's married. Many people her age will have kids, right? But she's still considered a child in this definition. So, the Hebrew word for child, what are some ages? We talk about the age of accountability. Guess what? Not in the Bible. But we talk about it because the concept's there, right? So what are ages of accountability that you can come up with? 12. Good standard, 12. Why 12?
Because by then, they know if they don't get to clean their room, everything's going in the trash because you done told them to clean it up 500 times.
But they're still living in somebody else's house, right?
Yeah.
Right, so they still have an authority over them. But yes, so the Baptists will say, when you know that you are a sinner, when you know that you need Jesus. Okay? Get that? Reasonable. 8. That's what in that religious group, a lot of people will 8. In the churches of Christ, we tend to throw out numbers like 12 and 13. Does a 15-year-old understand long-term what a commitment to Christ is? Maybe. What does it require to be a faithful Christian? One thing. Maturity, but with maturity comes one thing. Faith. Faith. When you develop faith, everything else falls in place. Right? Your obedience will come. Obedience to the gospel will come. The faith, we are saved because of grace through faith. Right? So that faith will trigger everything else. What is repentance? It's the opposite of faith. You know, as I go this way, I'm repenting from that way, right? That's what repentance is, just the inverse, right? As we grow in faith, we grow in repentance. So the Old Testament. What are some, so they had bar mitzvahs, we hear that about 13. What about the people in the land of Egypt? When they came out of Egypt, what happened? They had the festival, the golden calf, and what did God say? Tear it down. You're not going to go in the promised land except for, well, eventually Caleb and 20 years old. Now, why did God use that number? Right, but why did he use 20?
They weren't allowed in the military unless they were over 20.
Okay.
So that would be the youngest age, 20 years old or older, to go into the military or go into battle, I guess you could say.
Let me ask you this. Why did Jesus not start his ministry until he was 30? Right. But that was kind of the age to be a rabbi too, right? We expect, at that age. So there's some flexibility with this. And the point is, this word na'ar means child, is a range that encompasses up until 20 to 25 to 30. Now, are there people under the age of 20 who have an understanding of sin, an understanding of faith, yes. Are there people 21 who are still building their faith and they're not going to get baptized because they have not grown to that point? Yes. Right? So we have to grow in faith. So this child word, na'ar, what is a youth? Proverbs 22:6, Genesis 41. It's talking about, if you look at Isaac, when he's taken up to be sacrificed, this was not a young boy. David was not a young boy. He was not 12. Isaac was not 12. The faith of Isaac as a youth, right? Isaac was probably old enough that he could have subdued his father and said, "You ain't stabbing me." That submission was much like Christ's submission to God, in the sense that Isaac did not have to be sacrificed if he had not wanted to. He could have probably subdued his 100-something-year-old father and said, "No," right? So his willingness, it was much like, but the point is, he was not a young boy. This is not a 6-year-old going up there. So the reason I'm talking to that about our kids, and I was thinking about this recently, 150 years ago, what was a 16, 17, 18-year-old boy doing? He's a full-on man. He's got his own farm. He is plowing and tilling and maybe have a 15-year-old wife. And they were, in many ways, much more mature in their culture than a 25-year-old is today, right? Kids, now why are kids na'ar? Why are children growing socially and job-wise, and why are they growing up so slowly?
Expectancy of life, they're not, it's not, you talk about that 15-year-old life expectancy then was probably what, 30 or less?
45, 50.
45, younger, you die younger.
Yeah.
So
You better get the ball good to get it
different
going.
ball game, you gotta, and different generations probably raise their kids different.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, like you take for instance, you can do 3 generations. Like my grandfather's father was tougher on him than he was probably on my dad. My dad was probably less tougher on me, But it's just the culture and the time difference.
What did a 17-year-old need to know 150 years ago? Know God, know how to farm,
Budget.
how to trade. Anything else? Responsibility. That's, What are our children trying to learn now? Now, that doesn't mean that those other 3 things aren't super duper important. Could I get by learning just those 3 things, put me out in Kansas in the middle of, a farm? We drove to Alabama yesterday to Morrison's Crossroads and some of those places, are there still some people who just interact basically with their family and the people in their community, and they farm, and yeah. But most of them probably got internet and TV, and, you know, they have to go buy a car. You didn't have to do that back in the day, and you had to do, you know, politics. The world has expanded, and so it takes longer to become well versed in all these things so that you can interact with all these things. So I think that's part of the reason that age goes up. But God knew even back then what this study shows. Life events, you many times become the person you are. It's hard to change it by age 25. Your brain is still rewiring, hardwiring. If you need to make a change, if you need to improve yourself, if you need to grow, you can grow after the age of 25 or 30. You can. But the ability to grow changes about 25 or 30. So in other words, y'all know the difference in speed and acceleration, right? I have a car, it goes a certain speed, but if I need to go faster, quicker, I hit the accelerator pedal, right? So between up to age 25 to 30 is where you determine how well your accelerator works. You can still get up to speed, you can still learn, you can still adjust and adapt from 25 and older, but your ability to learn how to adapt goes way down after that age. So that's the reason God tells us to really focus on kids, put them in the right place, train them, teach them, try to get them in the way that they can learn how to learn. Do they make mistakes? Yeah. Do they think the wrong things? Yeah. Yeah. But training them how to be self-circumspect, how to learn, how to change, how to make good choices. We were talking at home yesterday, and I've talked to other people. I still have friends that I made in college who are much closer friends to me than anybody I've made since I've gotten older. Even though I've lived with some of these, not lived with, sorry, that sounded bad, lived nearby some of these people for a long, much longer time than the 4 years I had in college. Why? It's because the plasticity, the way our brain works, under the age of 25, we develop closer, stronger friends in that age group, right? That's the reason my high school reunion is much more well attended than my med school class reunion, because we're still close. Or we feel a bond whether we're close or not, right? So most of our memories before 25. Is 25 the new cutoff? These are all things from scientific studies. So whose responsibility is it to train your youth? Obviously the parents, family, grandparents, congregation, friends, school. Now, friends in school, they're going to train our youth. TikTok is going to train our youth. Instagram, Snapchat, going to train our youth. Do they have the best interest in our, how much of what we see now is marketing? Everything, the world is trying to sell things. We're trying to sell things too, right? We're trying to sell goodness and morality, and we think the reason, but the reason is because that's what God tells us to. God says there's a way that's going to make you more joyful because I created it, more happy because that's how I created it, more holy because that's the way it is. And you may have some struggles with interacting with the world because the world's going to tell you it ain't that way. But over time, you're going to realize, and it may be when you're 40, it may be when you're 30, it may be when you're 25, but there is a way that's going to make you happier sooner or happier long term if you make these choices now. Invest early. It's easier, right? Is it easy we saw on those first graphs, is it easy to have $1.8 million if you start at 30? No. It's much easier if you start younger. You can double your efforts. It's still easier you start younger. And that's what we keep trying to emphasize. Choices now versus right choices now make later life easier. How many of you ever heard, pay now, play later, play now, pay later? You ever heard that? It's true. Delayed gratification. You should love nobody more than you 30 years from now, 20 years from now. Your wife that you haven't met yet. Your husband you haven't met yet. Your children you haven't met yet. Make choices now that make them proud later, that set you up. And then we also have a responsibility ourselves, whether we're youth or anybody else, that we are to self-train. So, what does training mean? Christy, you are a personal trainer. What is training?
Effort consistently.
Consistent effort. When you train the way you're supposed to train, how do you feel the next morning? And if you won't tell them, I will. Sore. Right? What does soreness mean? You did something. Right? You did something that was challenging, that was difficult, that was outside your comfort level, and that's the only way you're going to grow. If you don't feel we talk about this in our house and have for 15 years plus. It's okay to be unhappy. Because sometimes unhappiness is, I didn't get to do what I wanted to do, or I did something I shouldn't have done, and that made me unhappy. So unhappiness is the direct result of, I did something I shouldn't have, or I didn't get to do what I wanted to do because what I wanted to do wasn't the better thing. Right? Paul struggled with that. Paul's an apostle. I don't do the things I know I should. I do the things I know I shouldn't. We're all going to struggle with that. But unhappiness, either the guilt of doing something you shouldn't, or the feeling like you missed out because you didn't get to do something you really want to do because there was an ethical standard. You said, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I like this. And this is a 50-slide lesson, which we're not going to get through. Watch your thoughts, because thoughts become words. Your words become actions. Your actions become habits. Your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. So your destiny, who you become, is directly related to your thinking. And I will put it in, your thinking is directly dependent on what you're putting in, what you're observing, what you're hearing. So, if you are Na'al, which most of us are not, but some are, it's the most important time of your life. If you become a success, it's because of what you cultivate in your life now. Give yourself permission to go beyond your comfort zone and fail safely. Right? That's the reason we have kids in our house, right? They're going to fail. We want to make sure it's a failure that doesn't hurt them long term. That's the reason my children will not go skydiving. When they get out of the house, I can't control that. They're not going to go mountain biking. They're not going to my knowledge, go out and do things I know that they shouldn't be doing, and they know they shouldn't be doing. I've only got so I'm okay with them going out and jumping a bike over a ramp with a helmet. That's a failure it's a safe failure. It's in my house failure. It's climbing the trees and falling out and stuff. Failing is the best teacher. Often is more learned from failing than from succeeding. A failure is someone who does not learn from failing. Right? They continue in failing because they don't learn from their mistakes. or someone who does not attempt something out of apathy or fear of failure, right? So you can, if you don't do anything, you fail. You never take the ship out of the port, right? But if you constantly run into the shoal of rocks that you hit last week and the month before and the month before and the month before, and you keep taking the same route and keep running into those rocks and grounding your ship, that's a failure too. Why? Hadn't learned from the rocks. You've got to learn from the failure. And then I put a note on here to read about Proverbs, talking about the foolish and the sluggard, right? This is week 2. Much of your future success depends on the foundation you create now. How do you, of course, this is supposed to be in the next week, so I put that in again. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets us against the knowledge of God. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. So are we going to have things that creep into our lives that we shouldn't? Outside stuff? Sure. Do we at times let stuff in? Absolutely. I mean, I know some of the shows that I watch. I hear the language, see what's being presented. I know some of that thing is probably exposing me to ideas that are not good. I have to be wary of those things. Hopefully that gets older as I get, But when you're kids, and this happens in every household, well, you watch that show. Well, you do blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying it's right. Maybe there's a better choice. I do think it's a little bit better when you're 45 versus 15. You're better able to handle some of those things. But if your heart turn away so that thou will not hear, thou shalt be drawn away. So the trick there is your heart. Y'all can't see that. I can't see it up here either, so it doesn't matter. Right here, I'll see if I can do that. Right, the heart. If thine heart turn away. What does that mean? When your heart turns away. You quit. I don't care. I don't care what you say. I'm going to do what I want to do. When your heart turns away. If thine heart turn away so that thou will not hear, so maybe the hearing comes after the internal of, thou shalt be drawn away and worship other gods and serve them. I denounce unto you this day that you shall surely perish, and you shall not prolong your days upon the land, whether thou passest over the Jordan or go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that have set before you a choice. Well, I put that in there. Set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may lead. Thou mayst love the Lord thy God, that thou mayst obey his voice and may cleave to him, for he is thy life and the length of thy days. It's a choice, right? I personally, and y'all can argue this, I don't feel like God punishes, and we can have examples, but on a day-to-day basis, I don't think God's out there punishing people who make sinful choices. I think it's just consequence of action. Right? He's saying there is a way the universe works. There's a way morality works. There's a way ethics work. This way leads to joy and holiness and righteousness. This way is going to get you in trouble. I don't have to schwack you if you choose this way. You are schwacking yourself. Society will hit you. There's a consequence. I beseech you, therefore, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. Be not conformed to this world, but transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what's good and acceptable and perfect will of God. How do I control my thoughts? One thing is sometimes just be still. Get away. Turn off the TV. Turn off the computer. Turn off the phone. And be still. Go to a nice, quiet place and just think and meditate and listen to nature. Just be still. And then when you go to thinking, try to emphasize things that are noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. Think about goodness. I've said this many, many, many times. Jason, come here for a second. All right. Go back over there. Don't sit down. Vance, come here. Oh my goodness. Will you take that to Gracie? Okay, stop. That's good. Who is more likely to sit down? Jason or Vance in their seat? Who's more likely to sit down? Closer to a seat. So if I tell you, don't sit down, right? What are you doing right now? Not sitting down, right? What are you accomplishing? Nothing. Just not sitting. What's Vance accomplishing? Go sit down. What was he accomplishing? He was doing something that he was told to do. Now, in taking my phone to Gracie, what was he also not doing? You can sit down, by the way. Sorry. What was he also doing by taking my phone to Gracie? Not sitting. Right? So the problem we have is if we're too focused on not sinning, but that's our focus is not sinning, we accomplish nothing except not sinning, which is good. But if we actively replace that with a good action, we don't have to worry about the sitting. Vance was not, you were standing there going like, I've been told not to sit. What had I better not do? Sit. Were you worried about sitting in your seat while you were walking over there? Not even worried about it, were you? Because it was not possible. All right. I jumped ahead of myself. That's a later slide. But the point of it is, we are saved because of grace through faith for good works. It does not say for not sinning. We have to be doing good things. And by doing good things, it keeps us from sin. How do I control my thoughts? Learn about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your genetics. That is something we talk about a lot in our house. Because there are things that your friends, whether you're 17, 15, 23, 35, 70, there are things that your friends do that you want to do. Right? How many of you know, I have a patient. She's 86 years old. She's in the best shape. She looks great. She's smart. She's a little more wrinkly than is natural because she has smoked for probably 65 years. Probably before that. She has smoked she reeks of smoke. She's like Pigpen. You see the cloud of smoke when she walks in, and she's healthy as a horse. Why has smoking not killed her? Who knows? But statistically, what do we know? Statistically, she has not made a good choice. It's worked out for her. She's gotten lucky. But it's not fair because I can't smoke like that. It'll probably kill me. What about the genetics of mental illness, of addiction, throw it out there. Diabetes, heart disease. There are things that I have certain proclivities for because of my genetics that you don't. Which means, and we talk about this, there's statistics, right? Why do I take a risk on something that I don't know? But there's biases. So we all have our own biases from the way we were brought up. We talked about that earlier. God wants us to be weak, not meek, not weak. Strength is a requirement of meekness. God demands we have our own house in order before we start changing the world. So we always, and I'll finish because I know we're about done. I've said this before. Why do people champion big causes? Is global warming important? Is abortion prevention important? Are those things important? Yes. Why do people champion those things when their house is a mess, when their own life is a mess? It's easier. I can't be held responsible if abortion continues in America in a year. I'm not a failure. But if I'm still struggling with this sin that I've tried my best to squash, and I'm still struggling with it, how do I feel? I'm a failure. So there's less personal responsibility when you champion big things versus getting your own house in order. Because you hold yourself responsible for your own house. And you can feel like a failure. And guess what? You are. Every day, we fail. Christians aren't people who don't fail. They're people who get up and try again the next day. That's what it is. Walking away is not faithfulness. Tripping, falling, getting up, taking the next step the next day is what faithfulness is. Now, hopefully, that same rock doesn't trip you 10 years from now or 10 months from now. But guess what will? A new rock. You'll find something else. Now, the good news is, through Scripture, we should, and through each other, what should we have that helps us? A map of like, hey, don't be jealous. That's going to trip you up. Hey, watch out for this area in your life because that's going to give you problems. You're going to be struggle with envy. You're going to struggle with pride. You're going to struggle with money, materialism. Those are things that, and Scripture says, hey, this is how the human heart works, separated from me. And we're all separated from God, not like in the garden, right? We live in a world that does not have the presence of God like it has in the garden. Therefore, we encounter these obstacles. We're warned about them, and sometimes we trip on them anyway. But we can, through wisdom, knowledge, faith, be trained to avoid some of those obstacles, right? I can get down the road to, I don't know what's something down there, let's say Ingalls. I can get to Ingalls just fine if I trip and fall 3 times or stump my toe or sprain my ankle. I can still get there. Guess what's a much more pleasant journey? If I avoid the rocks and the stumbling and the stumping. Still get there, but it's a much more profitable or enjoyable journey if I learn to avoid the mistakes that I've been warned against already. I'm getting done. Glenn's not here, so I don't know when to stop.
Everybody's attention, today we got a condensed church version, a lot of people out. If everybody could sit in these 2 sections over here, that way we could serve the table a little more efficiently. Thank you.
So anybody between the ages of 19 and 23, if you'll come sit over here. I'm just-